Okay. So hello all. Thank you for joining. I'm Sam Seckham, also known as #SavvySam, qualified, authorised, experienced and medicated on HRT. I've been a financial advisor for decades and I'm on a mission to help women make the most of their personal finances. This Finance on Fridays broadcast is where we spend half an hour talking about some of the latest information and views around topics that matter to our membership here at Women's Wealth. The Money Mentors and I love digging into research and data that's available on female-focused finance stuff. And we're often tackling subjects where you as the members are contributing an impressive amount of experience that allows us all to learn from each other. So today we're talking about how to manage family finance to get the best deal for everyone, sharing allowances and ownership of things to be tax efficient and fair, whether it's between adult partners or whether we're putting some stuff in the children's name or maybe even other family members' names. We'll be digging into that in just a moment, but can I just also point out that on the 29th of September, we've got our next Finance on Fridays, and we'll be looking at how to be a great boss for yourself. So if you're a contractor or self-employed, then we'll be talking to a fabulous lady from the accountancy practice Sperling Cannon, Sophie Grant. She'll be joining us. And we'll be talking about top tax tips for those who are self-employed and how to look after yourself as a self-employed person, how to be a good boss to your employee when you're the only employee. So if that interests you as a subject, pop that in the diary, 12 noon, 29th of September. But today we're talking about sharing is caring, right? It's also tax efficient. Look at some of the ideas for couples on how to talk about and develop a great relationship by being clear and fair about money stuff. And we'll also leave you with top 3 tips to be sure that you're a financially fit family, 3 things that you can avoid, and some resources to help you level up a bit more if you want to. Maria's joining me today. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Sam. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Maria's one of Women's Wealth's Money Mentors, and we're going to kick off looking at some research that Maria's been digging into. So what did you learn about the couple finance thing, Maria?
More and more research comes on the topic. People are looking at how people manage their finances when they're together. And the findings consistently find that younger women earning age up to 35 do not like to have a joint bank account with their partner. It is quite a big difference to the previous generation of women, where 50% or more used to have a joint current account with their partner. So it seems more and more of us younger women like our financial independence.
Yeah, interesting stuff, isn't it? Because I remember my mum telling stories about she couldn't get a loan unless she took my dad with her because the bank wouldn't let her have one in her own right. So it wasn't optional for her. Me, I've always kind of thought, joint accounts were what it was about until I got divorced, and then I realised it wasn't. And then for your generation, joint accounts aren't what it's about. It's about that. So things are changing, definitely. And I'm not sure whether it's for the good or bad, but it is changing. And I think it brings about some things that need talking about.
Absolutely. There's so many different ways how to manage your money with your partner. You have the one extreme where we keep everything separate, my current account, your current account. So easy to make transfers nowadays. Technology makes it almost instant. Do you really need a joint current account? And the other extreme is we pull everything together, we pay everything together, what's mine is yours. But there's also quite a few different ways in between that could be good and best practice for you personally, different preferences with different financial outcomes. So we're going to look at some ways of how to do that. If you opt for the joint current account, there isn't only one way of doing it. You could have both of your wages paid in it and then maybe set some money aside from the joint account to your personal one just for fun or for your personal items and, your hair and your manicures and the spa days with the girls. Or you could have your salaries paid into your solo current accounts, and then transfer an amount for the joint one, for just the joint expenses. Some couples transfer 50% of their earnings. Some couples transfer 50% of what the common expenditure is to cover half of the bills. So there's lots of ways to kind of do that.
I always find it quite interesting getting involved in the conversations, Maria, though, about what is a joint expense and what isn't. Because I remember feeling like a referee in one conversation with a couple where she was quite put out by the cost of his contact lenses, his disposable contact lenses, turning up monthly from the joint expenses account. And he countered with this, yeah, but, there's quite a bit, 20% of the grocery shopping bill that comes out of there is full of clothes and cosmetics. So there was this like bit of argy-bargy going on about what qualified as a joint expense and what didn't. How would you do it?
We have to discuss this with your partner, don't you? The first thing to do is to have a budget, look at what goes out over the last month and sit down and discuss, is this something we both used? Is this just my own personal expense? Kind of go through it, come through it, and find an agreement of which items are actually joint and which items are personal.
Again, technology helps, doesn't it, Maria, with this? Because some of those apps are really quite granular now in the detail they provide in terms of what you're spending.
Absolutely. You can categorize your expenses. You could split, just like you would split a bill after going to a restaurant with your friends, or split your Uber home with your partner. Technology makes it easy to split costs. You can use a spreadsheet.
We love a spreadsheet, don't we?
We do. We absolutely love a spreadsheet at Women's.
Not everyone's cup of tea, though. We get that.
Well, some people prefer to have a financial date night. So they will set one day, one evening in a month, or more frequently if you wish, and they will only discuss what's going on with the finances this month over a nice meal with a nice glass of wine and make it a nice experience out of it.
Yeah. Talking money. Don't think that talking money is something that comes naturally to a lot of us. And I do think that at the heart of this is having those conversations. But I also think it's really important when you're going into a conversation about money with somebody who matters to you, not to go in believing that you know best and you're going to be educating and teaching them. Because it is my experience. I get the privilege of seeing lots of people's attitudes and habits around money. And you are also different. You have been brought up differently. You've learned from different teachers and you've had different experiences with your money. And you are all conditioned by that. I am conditioned by my experience with money. And there's no oddsing that, but it can be a bit difficult to review what our perspective is compared to other people because we don't talk about it. So we think that that's it. The one we've got is the one, because it is. It's the only one we've talked about. So when you go into a conversation, be willing to listen to other people's conditioning and what matters to them and open-minded about it, because you'll be surprised how differently we all are when we all think about money and how we all behave. So it's a really important point. Go in with an open mind and willing to learn and adjust. When you have these conversations. Maria, you shared with me that your personal experience around this started off with the 50-50 thing because you wanted to be independent when you were dating.
Exactly what you were saying. You come with some sort of an attitude towards money, and for me as a woman, it means independence. But it also means that when I'm approaching a relationship, when I'm in dating stage, I like to keep things 50-50. I don't want to feel that I owe anyone anything. It's a matter of pride. So that's kind of how my mind connects with money. And you start this relationship at the beginning with this 50-50, I'm an independent, strong woman attitude. But then the relationship becomes closer and time goes by and different types of expenses become common, and you never kind of sit down to talk about how you manage it. And my last relationship was such that my partner was earning much more than me. And we started off as covering halves all the time. And at some point further down the line, it became quite difficult for me to keep up because my earning power wasn't as high. And I didn't have the right way to bring it up.
Yeah.
I didn't have a conversation. I could feel a strain. Almost all my salary monthly was going on to kind of keep up the 50-50 expenses, whether that was for the groceries or covering half of our nights out, or I was assisted to pay for half of the flights and hotel on a holiday. But it was meaning that I would sacrifice on other personal things that I couldn't afford anymore. I didn't save during that period of time. And I was feeling almost scared to bring it up. I didn't want to, one, betray my pride as an independent woman, but also didn't want to make him feel disappointed that I can't keep up, and I want to maybe limit his lifestyle in one way or another. So it kind of, but it was something stressing me out in the background. It was a stressful experience. It was making me worry. I was always kind of thinking, oh, let's not do this. I will decline invitations just because I wanted to manage how much I kind of can afford to cover on a 50-50 basis. And that put some sort of a strain on our relationship as well as a result. When it became really an issue for me, it was already a problem. It wasn't brought up in probably the best way. The conversations were not amicable. They were not with learning and understanding. So yeah.
Well, you were already going into it feeling defensive and like you hadn't managed to keep up, and feeling a certain amount of like disappointment in yourself that you couldn't do this 50-50 thing, and defensive about having to admit that. So it kind of like it started from the wrong place, didn't it, really? By the time it made you feel like that, it was kind of too late, really.
I didn't have the ways. I didn't have the words. Now I am much more financially savvy, thanks to Savvy Sam, and I understand finances a little bit better, and I'm not ashamed to bring it up and discuss it openly. So I have now the confidence and the language. But building to that point, and I would say learning point for me was bring the conversation up as early as possible. Even when you think this is just a dating period, it's nothing serious yet, we can't really talk about joint money. Every dinner, every party, every friend's barbecue you attend to, and you have to bring flowers to the host and wine. Every time you do something like this, it is a joint expense. So talk about it and know what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay, so there are other things, aren't there, to be considered in terms of the benefits of being a couple or a family, because people have allowances that they can use. And I've got a bit of a quiz question for you here, Maria. Actually, I know you don't know you didn't know the answer before we talked about it earlier. So when did the Inland Revenue start to treat women as independent individuals? Up to a certain point, and it's a shockingly recent point in time, the Inland Revenue treated women as an extension of their husbands if they were married, rather than as an individual having their own rights and allowances. When do you think that changed? It's
an eyebrow-raising answer, Sam. When I heard it, I literally raised my eyebrows.
1990. Like, it was that recently. And as I say, I do remember my mom not being able to have her own bank account. But 1990, it took the Inland Revenue to treat women as an independent person rather than an extension of their husband. So, the tax laws have finally caught up, but I don't think societal thinking has necessarily caught up. So, we might have to do quite a lot of asking for a more equitable treatment from society and from our partners as well as our employers. But there are some benefits from it. So now that we are independent in the tax system, we get our own personal allowances, we get our own ISA allowances, we get our own pension allowances, and we get there's another allowance which is called the capital gains tax allowance. And it used to be over £12,000 and it's been slashed and it's now £6,000. And they're halving it again next year to £3,000. But this is the allowance that if you make a gain on an asset, you can have a certain amount of it tax-free. At the moment, it's £6,000 each. But, you know, if you're selling a buy-to-let property and you're going to have to pay tax on a gain of 30 grand or something, you can share that property with your partner. It's called an inter-spouse exemption, and you have to be married. So it's called an interspouse exemption. You can share that property with your partner and get twice the tax-free allowance by doing that. There's also an ability to share some of your personal allowance. If you haven't used all your personal allowance or your partner hasn't, you can share a bit of that with your partner. So there are some advantages to sharing tax allowances, which are available to married people. And we also noticed some stuff, didn't we, around discounts.
Absolutely.
Maria.
If you are married or live together at the same address, sometimes it's beneficial because you get better rates for insurance, for instance, for your car, for your house. Even your health insurer will extend a discount to you if you are from the same family or from the same household. They don't necessarily advertise it up front, but if you ask them, if you call them and say, oh, we have already a policy in the name of my partner, we would like to add me as well, or we are already an existing customer, would you like another one? They will always, almost always extend you some sort of an offer. So there's a saving there to be made too.
Look for those partner discounts. It might make it worth sharing your life with somebody. Who knows? But also co-owning property, mortgages and property. There's some stuff to be known around that, isn't there, Maria?
Mortgages can be tricky because, again, some people are very, very insistent on having 50% ownership of a mortgage, and they will insist on paying 50% of the monthly fee, which might mean taking a longer term mortgage and accumulating interest over a longer term, so you can both pay equal shares. If one of the partners in a couple earns substantially more and they could cover a bigger portion, you might have the option to pay more towards the mortgage and clear it up quicker, paying less interest over time. But then it's the inequality of the ownership. So that's very much of a, again, discussion and a personal choice of what is best for the couple.
Yeah, there is a way, isn't there? And not everybody knows this, of owning property where it isn't automatically considered to be 50-50. So if you own a property jointly, it is assumed that if anything happens to you, your half goes to the other one and they own all of it. That's joint ownership. But you can own a property as tenants in common. And if you do that, then your portion of the property, which might not be 50%, it might be 20 or 30 or 80%, whatever percentage it is, your portion goes to, according to your will, is distributed, and it doesn't necessarily belong to the other person. So you've got a specifically identified portion of the property that belongs to you, and it's dealt with by your will, and it doesn't automatically pass to the other person, which can be really handy if you're thinking about co-owning a house with somebody that you've not quite decided it's a keeper. So, you know, it's a good place to start. But sometimes if you want this difference in percentage of repayment for you, because you earn 30% of what he earns, or he earns 30% of what you earn, you want to own the house in those various proportions, then you can do that as well. So there are different ways of doing it. If you go to a solicitor and just as a couple, they're going to assume you want joint tenants. So you would need to ask for tenants in common. But not everybody knows that it is possible to organise it that way, and it doesn't affect your borrowing ability either. So worth knowing.
Yes, mortgage terms remain the same. And also, when you mention wills, have your will ready. know what's in your partner's will and know what's in your will. You never know what's going on in life. You want to make sure your assets are distributed the way you want. If something happens to one of you, to your children, or to the people you would like. So yeah, have a will.
You've got to make sure that even if, you know, somebody just gets delayed out the country for a couple of weeks or something, that you can carry on running the house and dealing with things. And if anything happens to a partner permanently, you need to know how to access the stuff that you're jointly responsible for. So have a safe space where you keep this stuff, have a will and know where it is so that you can access it. Really important point, Maria. Thanks for that. Unfortunately, we don't really have time to cover the fact that children and other members of the family can also have some of the family assets in their name and benefit from their allowances. For example, there's a junior ISA, so children can have an ISA and you can put money in their name. There are some advantages and some disadvantages to doing that, so you would need to look into whether it was right for you. But, you know, it is an option. So we just wanted to kind of have a little bit of a summary of some of the things we've covered. But before we do that, I wanted to point out that there is quite a lot of help on the Money Helper website. This is particularly for anybody who finds themselves in dispute with a partner or really struggling to have an equitable relationship and discussions around that. There's some really great resources on that website to help you prepare for those discussions and navigate that situation. We promised you that we would go through some interesting stuff today and leave you with some do's and some don'ts. So let's make sure we've covered that. So here's our 3 tips on what you really need to be doing around money stuff as a family. The first thing, really important, is understand your own relationship with money. There's a great book written by Morgan Housel called The Psychology of Money. And if you're getting to know yourself around money and you'd like to explore how your thinking might be very different to somebody else's, then you could check this book out, because it's it's a very interesting read and it will be insightful. Remember, your opinion and your attitude to money is just yours. It doesn't make it right. It just means it's what you've learned and what you've picked up. Be open to some other ideas. That being open to other ideas might mean doing a bit of research into yourself. Talk to friends as well. Talk to friends and other people. And we have a resource that you might want to tap into. The next one of these sessions is on the 21st of July at noon, and it's called Money Habitudes. And it's a live coaching session where we put a small group of women together and we do a little bit of a quiz and find out what our dominant traits are around money stuff. And then we have a chat about what our superpowers are and our challenges are, because we've got these dominant traits. And the really interesting part of that is, because there are other women in the group, you get to see how other women deal with stuff and what their challenges and superpowers are. And you go, oh my God, I would never do that. Or, wow, I never thought of doing that. You know, we learn from each other. So it's a really nice, enlightening experience. If anybody wants, there's always a couple of free places. We put a couple of free places out via the Women's Wealth Network each time we run one of those. It's normally monthly. So keep an eye out. And if you want to join us on the 21st, there's a couple of spaces on that one. Discuss, that's the other thing. Now, point number 3, talk about it. Discuss, negotiate and agree a strategy that's acceptable to your family. It's a very individual thing, money is. We've got some great real life stories to help you hear other people's perspective and how they had to negotiate with their partners to get where they are today on Her Fabulous Financial Future, which is our podcast. So you need to talk about money. You need to be getting other people's opinions. You need to broaden your perspective, and you need to learn to negotiate. You need the language to talk about it with the partner. Maria, some mistakes that people can avoid.
Well, avoid my mistake. Do not ignore the subject. Don't keep your head in the sand. Talk about it, raise it. Do not ignore it until it starts stressing you or puts a strain on your relationship. Good relationships deserve to be preserved good, and talking about money can only do it good as early as possible, rather than bad. The second no is to not know the details of things, not knowing whether you and your partner have insurance, not knowing where that policy is, not knowing whether it was on an email or whether it was a printed statement somewhere. So if something happens and you need to quickly retrieve a document and quote a number, know where your documents are, have that safe space that Sam mentioned. Don't be the person who didn't know where this account login is and you can't do anything about it. So have your documents sorted, ready on a spreadsheet, on an app, whatever helps. And the third no is probably don't be unwilling to learn. Don't be my way is the only way. Try to understand your partner's attitude to money, what they're trying to achieve, and how they see handling money best, and try to reach an agreement between you. So yeah, don't be closed off to ideas and suggestions.
Great. So we have got just a couple of minutes left, and I'm wondering whether our members have come up with any questions, or whether there's anything Carolyn wants to make sure has been asked or answered.
No, we've got no questions at the moment, Sam.
Okay, so it seems like we've covered quite a lot of the issues that we said we'd cover. We've given you some tips, and we also would like to just point out that we've got some resources on the Women's Wealth Network, which allow you to kind of level up there's one on there called How to Start Investing. There's some stuff on there whether you should do pension or ISA, but there's also some great stories from our members, and some interesting blogs which will help you tackle different financial subjects. Because we're so female focused, it's hard to believe that some of those won't involve how we negotiate money with our partners. So thank you for joining Maria and I hope that you found the session useful. Please join the free Enable membership on our Women's Wealth Network. Let us be your best financial friend. At least have us to talk to, even if it's hard to talk money with other people.
Okay, I think we have a question coming in.
Okay.
Just bear with me. I'll come back to you.
Okay. Don't forget, we've also got that session on the 29th of September, where we're looking at how to be a great boss to yourself if you're self-employed, a contractor or a sole trader. So, yeah, an important session. Sophie's a really fabulous and very likable accountant, so she'll be helping us with that. So before we shut down, are there any questions?
Yeah, we've got a question here. So if thinking of going down the 50-50 route of sharing banks, what happens when the female is on maternity leave, etc.?
Well, I think the whole point about the 50-50, and I'm writing a piece on this for the Telegraph, actually. Follow me in the Telegraph if you want to, on moral money issues. But we had a situation like this where actually the lady was saying, can I charge my husband the cost of childcare? You know, where we live, it costs 32 grand to have our kids in childcare. So can I charge him that? So, you know, the point is that if you are a carer, primary carer for the children, then of course 50-50 doesn't work. But I think the important thing is that the other person, whether it's the man or the woman, because we at Women's Wealth, we have quite a lot of situations where the lady is the primary earner and the man is the primary carer. So I'm not always saying the primary carer is the woman, but in this case it is. And the primary carer doesn't get to earn, but the primary earner does get to earn because the primary carer facilitates it. So the money that the primary earner earns is yours to share. That's my opinion. It doesn't always go down well with the primary earner, whether they're male or female. So again, the conversation needs to be had. When we step off the career ladder as women to care for children, or as anyone to care for children, we jeopardize our earnings potential forever and a day. It's naive to think that you can take a break from your career and that your earnings in the future aren't affected by that. Of course they are. So it's not only what you don't earn now, it's what you're never going to earn in the future because you had that break, and you deserve to be compensated for it. And of course, the 50-50 thing doesn't work at that point. So if you are going down that 50-50 road, it has a limited lifespan if you're planning to have children. And those are tricky conversations to have. And the sooner you surface them, the better. Any other questions?
Yeah. About a question of being mindful of this. This is, I think, still on the 50-50 route. What if one of the partners is long-term sick?
I mean, it's that whole for better or for worse in sickness and health thing, isn't it? I think the thing about long-term sick is you need to have prepared for that as a family, because nobody knows which one of you it's going to happen to, if either. And it's a family problem, isn't it? So is the person who's gone sick the person who provides the care and home management? Is the person who's gone sick the person who provides the wages? You know, there is insurance you can take out to replace some of the money you would need to hire a carer for the children, or to replace the earnings of the partner who's not able to earn. So, you know, look into ensuring that you can succeed. Having a contingency fund, financial planning is great for this, because whenever we do financial planning, we run scenarios and stress test the situation by imagining the worst case scenarios, and then seeing what would happen and how quickly it would all fall into a hole. And if it is catastrophic, the risk, then insurance is the answer. But it's too late by the time somebody's already ill to do anything except work out how you're going to survive it. So, you know, try and get your vision up on this stuff. These risks are real for all of us. So yeah, if you are already in that situation, the only thing you can do is get some serious budgeting done and look at how long the assets are going to last, and how you're going to utilize what you've got to make it last as long as possible. I hope that helped. I'm afraid we don't have time for any more. In fact, we've run over a little bit now. But I want to say a big thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. And I hope that it's been a useful return on the investment of your time, and that we've given you some information and some resources that you're going to be able to take away and make use of. Maria, thank you. You're a star. Thank you for sharing your generation's perspective on this and your personal experiences and your wisdom as a money mentor.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sam. Happy Finance on Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend.
See you all again on the 29th of September at 12 noon. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.